that is to show the final elevations of buildings I-1, I-2, and I-3, and how they retain the loft-style industrial warehouse aesthetic that was agreed upon since the RDCP for these buildings, which line the railroad track on the east side of the west parcel. On the left side, facing you are the original exhibits from the site plan approval. There was a style sheet, if you will, that illustrated the materials and types of architectural character that were to be applied to the three buildings. We've created now, I did not have this last month, a similar materials board that shows now the mix of red brick, the metal detailing, the composite panels, which would be used in the similar manner as shown in the elevations of the three buildings. The buildings north is this direction. The railroad tracks run south-north, I-1, I-2, I-3. This is one of the three blocks within phase one. They all front on Legend Drive, parking behind, and sidewalk and street trees in front along Legend Drive. So each of the buildings had a series of mix of materials and planes and vertical detailing of the building such that the industrial warehouse look, if were these to be actual warehouse buildings, they would typically just be a flat plane, brick, repeating windows, very industrial look. What we've done and what was envisioned was that same vocabulary would be used in a way by varying the materials, varying the planes slightly front to back, and changing the materials in the vertical plane at different floors to utilize that same architectural character, but in a much more interesting and residential friendly way. So it didn't look like a warehouse, but it had a warehouse type character. So we've done that, we believe, in the final drawings, final elevations rather. The floor plans have been adjusted slightly as the residential units have been finally designed. No change in number of units, no change in location of units, just in the layout of the floor plan, which then reflects in the elevation. But we believe that the character of the elevation and the material choices and the juxtaposition of different planes and different materials reflects the same character that was approved by your board earlier for the Block I buildings. I can go through each of the buildings, but they're similar. The final drawings are now on 2 pages for each building. So this is building I-1. This is building I-2. You can see that when I'm describing the building is fairly long, but by varying the brick panels and having them inset or set back with cementitious panels or metal panels, and breaking up the full height with metal trellis up top, or different types of windows, slightly different rhythm of the windows, we can create that residential character while retaining the aesthetic. Please answer any questions you may have.
Other than size, is there any difference between the 3 buildings?
I-1 building is the smallest building. That's on the left, on the north side. That's the senior building, senior affordable building. The other two buildings, I-2 and I-3, are almost the same size. They are the non-senior buildings.
Okay.
And the workforce housing is in either I-2 or I-3? Is that part of the, I thought that was part of the mix.
Yeah, the workforce housing is mixed between the I-2 and the I-3 buildings.
Thank you, David. This is David Sands from Toll Brothers.
I had a few questions regarding, deviations from material choices between originally proposed and what's being shown now. I guess two of them. The one is the corrugated metal panels that are being shown beneath windows. And I know before it did show metal panels, but I'd say aesthetically it's quite a different look, having that, what we're seeing on the original design board. It's a darker, smoother, called out either as ceramic or metal panel versus the corrugated metal being shown now. I guess I'd be curious why that change. I would have preferred to see it more in keeping with what was there before, or if not, something like a dark brick to create that visual change and difference, but not the corrugated metal. And then the other one was the faux wood tile that's being proposed up at the top. I saw it's at the entrances, and then I think at the very top volume that comes.
Up here?
Yeah, projecting on the top of the roofs. And there's nothing similar to it at all in the original design. And I'm just questioning why not just use something that would be a little more subtle and in keeping with the original board in terms of either, once again, a darker tile or a darker brick.
I think in both cases, the architect for the final drawings are Barton Partners out of Philadelphia.
Mm.
The architect for the initial concept plan was Hart Howerton. And they were working with they did not do a final design, they did a concept design. I think David, please jump in if you will, but I believe it's the final development of the detail of the design by that architect and their interpretation of what was approved and what was desired here.
Mm-hmm.
So the combination of materials, I think, may vary slightly, but I think in the overall, and when seen here in isolation, clearly the corrugated metal panel is different than a flat metal panel. But I think in the extent of the building, which runs 400, 500 feet long, and the variety of the changes in plane, that difference in material certainly from the road will be less strong than it is here. I think they wanted to give a little bit more texture to that metal panel as opposed to just having it flat. And I think the corrugated profile will do that. In terms of the tile, I think again they just wanted to have a little bit more variation in color at certain locations. You know, this panel, this is a cementitious panel. These were shown as this was not the actual design of those buildings. These were a style board.
Right.
So we do not believe that the intent of the approval nor the design guidelines were to link specific materials and specific colors to once and forever, but to allow the architects, and part of the reasons for having individual architects for all the buildings is so that you do get a little variation, but to play within the same theme and the same overall palette that was provided for review earlier on and was approved.
Yeah, I just call out those two materials because it seems to me they deviate from, at least in my mind, what an industrial looking type building may be, or I've seen more elegant solutions that would I think, address those goals that they're trying to achieve, so that's why I just point them out. The other features I noticed that have changed is there used to be Juliet balconies. I don't see any balcony of any sort anymore. And also, it looked like there was more pergolas along the ground level that I don't see anymore. So I was just wondering why those changes as well.
David, you know about
There are
balcony?
Juliet balconies.
Okay, then I'm just not seeing them.
They're sort of hard to see, but, it's like on the I-2 building, I have to find exactly which ones there. So like, it's a little hard to see in 2D here, but
Okay.
like, these are Juliet balconies, these are Juliet balconies, these are Juliet balconies.
So there's a few, and before it looked like there may have been more, like it was a more regular feature, but maybe I'm wrong. Was it, like now it's more of an accent that, okay, we have a couple on maybe the end towers versus before it was across the facade, is that correct, or?
You know, I'd have to look back at the original one to
Okay.
see kind of the exact numbers.
And then in terms of the ground level, before I was noticing there was the low wall, there was more, maybe it's also the rendering, shows it more with the shadows that are being cast by the pergola along the one facade right there I can see. And I just didn't notice as much of that feature happening on the newer design, which also, yeah, I don't know, site plan wise or has a
There
building
there
ground
are
level.
little balcony details here. The site is quite narrow, so there actually is no room to have full outdoor areas.
Okay.
Yeah, and when we got into really finalizing the construction documents, where these are, very conceptual initially, it got to the point where it wasn't gonna be really usable space there,
Okay.
so we had to kind of play around with the design a little bit and have some of the patio recessed into the building with an overhang on the second floor over the first level to
Okay.
kind of get that same amount of outdoor space.
Mhm.
So it's just, you don't necessarily, it's hard to see on a 2D plan.
Okay. I think that one's- yeah. I do appreciate the presentation tonight, having both the before, or has the previous concept and the current design iteration. It makes it helpful to be able to compare those things.
If there are no other questions, I can go on to the second condition.
Yes, please.
The second condition related to the landscape screening of utility enclosures. There are 3 such enclosures in Block I of note, 2 transformers, and 1 Verizon equipment pad. The 2 transformers are located between, and the 2 transformers provide the power for the 3 buildings. There's one between I-1 and I-2, near the road frontage, and one between I-2 and I-3, again near the road frontage. And then there's a Verizon enclosure at the back southeast corner of the site in the parking area. So what we've done is to do a blow-up of those 3 areas. We happen to have the transformers on site, so we see exactly what they look like. And we were able to, through coordination with Con Ed, have the transformers face to the east, that is away from the street, in terms of the cabinet door. And that's important because the metal box for air circulation has to be separated from any structure or any planting of size, a minimum of 3 feet, and on the door side, there has to be 10 feet clear. So by having the doors face open to the back, that 10 feet clear can be away from the public right of way. which we believe to be beneficial. So what we've done, here's a picture of the transformer sitting in, on the construction site right now. This is the first plan over there on the left between building I-1 and I-2, setback from the sidewalk, behind a row of medium hedges. There's 3-foot setback from any taller planting that we can plant ground cover or grass around the pad. So these sit on a concrete pad. So the transformer has a slightly irregular shape. It opens to the back, and here we have a walkway that connects it to the larger patio to the rear. And when viewed from the sidewalk, there would be planting in front of the transformer. We're not trying to completely hide it because it needs to be in the context of all the other planting there, but we believe that this, both the way it's facing and the separation from the street, will help to buffer its view. The second one is similarly sited. Here we show you a front view of the cabinet. So the cabinet doors open all the way out, and so that's why they need the 10-foot clear in front. So here, this is on the island, the traffic island that borders the parking area between I-2 and I-3, set back from the main sidewalk. Again, opening to the east, and actually that 10-foot clear, half of that is in a parking space, and if they ever need to get maintenance, they would just block off that parking space for the day. 3 feet clear on all sides, and we have the opportunity to screen it on 2 sides with a similar shrub planting. The third condition is a Verizon pad, which has 4 boxes. These have actually been set already. Concrete pad with 1 larger box and 3 smaller boxes. It was sited at the back of the parking area, which is good for visibility certainly from the road. We can do a similar type screening here. This box is sited such that it has its clearance within the pad, so we don't need to provide additional clearance beyond the pad itself. We do need to provide access, so a person can get back to the box when necessary, but we're able to shield it on 2 sides from the parking lot. So we have, there will be, or there are similar conditions in other site plans for different blocks, and we will be presenting, where we are required to put screening, we'll be presenting them in a similar manner so you can see how that would look from adjacent areas.
So those Con Ed transformers that are sitting between buildings I-1, 2, and 3 are just to serve that block I?
Yes.
But the Verizon equipment, is that also just to serve that, or is that serving the entire property?
I think it's just,
Well, 1,200 units.
oh,
1177.
plus a couple of miscellaneous.
So the entire property, okay.
I understand the desire to have a continuous look and feel with the landscaping, but was there any consideration to going with a higher hedge to actually conceal it from the road?
We believe that it's, I don't know that you really want it to, I think it sticks out more if you put a taller hedge in one place. It just makes it, maybe it's not a green thumb, but it's a sore thumb. I think that in the context of the entire planting and the 2 buildings and all the activity going on at the pool, you won't see the box. The box becomes part of, you don't see utility poles when you're driving down the street unless you are an engineer and you like to look at utility poles. But I think there'll be enough other things going on that it's not going to disturb you, that you see the top of a green box. There may be other things that disturb you, but I think that this is actually pretty
And is
calm.
the plants, is that at, when the plants are fully mature?
Yes. We don't want 6-foot shrubs in the first layer of planting as you walk down the street. We don't want to block the view. We want, as we've tried to design beautiful buildings and nice spaces, we don't want to block that off from the public view.
But there isn't another technique that you could use that would further screen, but not present the sword thumb, green thumb you presented? I mean, you talk about a difference here of maybe a couple of feet, of having some additional landscaping to further screen.
Well, we don't have a lot of room. We basically have one row of plants. And we think if we put arborvitae, something like that, it would look worse rather than better. To have 5 arborvitae standing taller than everything else. And we don't want to have a row of arborvitae or a vertical plant running across the whole frontage of the building.
Or even material that's not landscaping, but something else. It's just a thought.
I know that even with the generators, they'll use like a forest green, dark green color, kind of camouflage it in there. I don't know what the altitude is over this.
The transformers themselves are dark green, so we think that they will blend
So
as
that helps.
they do here.
That
It'll be a similar, it won't be beige with the green planting in front. There won't be that contrast.
Except for the Verizon, that was a different color, right?
Yeah, that's beige.
Yes, the Verizon boxes are in the, are set back from the road.
Well, they're set back in the road, but they are in fact in the corner of the parking lot. Is that correct?
They're in the corner of the parking lot, yes.
And is there traffic that comes around that I-3 building, around that corner near the Verizon equipment?
If you're parking back there, you'll, Turn
That's
through
your
there.
access, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my concern honestly is, given that one pedestal of equipment is serving the entire 1,177 units, if someone's careening around the corner and hits the equipment, it's a single point of failure, and you could take out communications for your entire property.
Adrian, are you planning on having any bollards in there to address that?
We could certainly put some kind of, I'd put it in front of the pad itself, behind the shrubbery, to have a guardrail or something that would deflect a vehicle that was not fully intent on wiping out the Verizon boxes. But if
Right.
they accidentally swung wide, that they would be encouraged to go left. So I think
Right.
that's,
It's also curved in
it's curved in that area too. So that the first line of defense is the curb. There could be a guardrail behind the shrubs in front of the pad.
Okay.
Because
so
we do have guardrail, we do have a similar guardrail at the back here, where we have a stormwater measure to prevent cars from going into that. So we could extend that around the box for an
Right,
extra layer of protection.
okay.
We have made our application for building permits for Block I buildings. They will be done in 4 stages. The first stage is piles below the surface. And I believe that, well, we also have Mr. Nanarelli's comments to address, but those are the 3 things that stand between the Block I construction folks getting their pile permit and moving forward with that work. So if, on Mr. Natarelli's comments, we appreciate that from our last submission, he was able to review those again within a week. My associate Mark Ratz spoke with James today, and we believe that we're all on the same page as how his latest comments would be addressed, and we'll get that to him within a couple days.
What's the anticipated timeframe looking towards the future for the construction and the phase? You mentioned the building permits are going to be phased, but like, can you speak to that?
Yeah, so we'll start with the I-2 building first, and then go to the I-1 building, and then the I-3 building last. Most likely the buildings will be about 2 months behind each other. So the I-2 building will start, and then we'll do all the piles at once. Those will go fairly quickly. But the I-2 building will go first, and then the I-3 building when the concrete's getting finished up on the I-2 building, that'll move over to the to the I-1 building, and then from the I-1 building over to the I-3 building. So we anticipate, each building lagging about 2 months behind the one before it. But it'll all basically get done at once.
And are you speaking to the pile? You said piles all at once, and then the foundations and following construction is what you're referencing in terms of the 2 month kind of. They'll be starting, say, foundations on one. 2 months later, they'll be starting on the other, and then meanwhile, the first one will be coming out of the ground.
Yeah, it's like the piles themselves will go a lot faster than like the actual concrete work. So the piles themselves, from what we're hearing, probably could take about, a little over a month to do all 3 buildings, where the reality is the concrete work to do all the footings and the underslab plumbing and everything will take, a solid month and a half to 2 months. So that's where kind of the buildings will naturally fall behind each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in terms of total construction time, looking out past that, assuming everything goes smoothly with
Right.
work, what are you forecasting as completion for each of those?
Yeah, so I think on our first building, we anticipate that to be around 18 to 20 months, and then each building after that. So, we're probably approximately 2 years to be completely done with the project, with the first building getting done in approximately 20 months.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we get a show of hands, or that this is acceptable, then we can?
We don't have a resolution, do we?
No, that's, we're not looking for a resolution, just a concurrence that this satisfies the condition.
It's up to you if you want to give them the sense of the board as to whether or not the board is satisfied or not. You may do so. If you choose not to, you may not do so. So it's up to you.
And how does that help you, Mr. Tong, either way?
Well, Mr. McCarthy's here tonight, so he can get a sense of the board, even if you don't do it officially. But were he not to be here, then that would probably help whoever was signing the building permit.
Okay. I think the only question I had is whether the questions were answered to your satisfaction, Kirsten, relative to the design of the facade.
I mean, I've made my opinions known or comments, and my preferred recommendations would be following what I said, but yeah, that's.
If you're not ready at this point, I mean, the one thing I would maybe request is that the actual pile permit, I don't believe would affect anything that we're talking about at this point in time. If we could move forward with the issuance of the pile driving.
Definitely.
And if you still have anything remaining, comments that you want to bring back or follow up with between now and next month, at least we can get started with.
Yeah, that'd be great.
With-
Okay.
With the,
Sean, would that even, with the foundation permit
Yeah,
get into that point too.
as long, I mean, I don't think that the comments affect
No,
the
exactly. I was gonna say,
foundation or
my
the pile,
comments
so
don't
if we
affect
at
piles or
least give the
foundations.
building department the ability to move forward with that, and if there are still some questions maybe about materials or landscaping, we could still tweak that if that's okay with everyone?
Yeah, I think we'd like to,
On the landscaping, we obviously have,
Yeah,
right,
some time.
we have some time,
year and a half to figure that one out.
yeah.
Agreed. I move to approve those two permits, the piles and the concrete work.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'd be happy to come back and speak to the architect or have the architect come and talk about the specific materials that they've chosen, if
Yeah.
that would be.
Or if they may want to reconsider, that's.
Yeah, they may want to reconsider as well.
I'll talk about that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tong. All right, Phase 2 final subdivision plat approval for Edge on Hudson.
That is a resolution which I prepared with the applicant's counsel to address what had been a series of mistakes in signing the original resolution. You are not signing the original resolution,
Or
but
the lack
signing the
thereof.
original
Yeah,
plat.
right.
The applicant submitted a plat. When you signed it, Chair Shu, it was, you were in transition with Gordon
Shores.
Schwartz, thank you, your previous acting chair, and you signed it and made reference in the signature block to an earlier decision which dealt with the roads and fill permit. This was designated a final plat, and it had maps of buildings, et cetera, or it was a map with buildings, et cetera. So this resolution, I'm sorry, we also, in the resolution, it makes clear that the current development matches the prior filed map. So this resolution essentially brings the map forward to your resolution tonight, and it adopts your earlier signature as a final map signature. When I say it brings it forward to tonight, it really doesn't bring it forward. It is you acting tonight to adopt that map as a final map and to adopt your signature. I'm sorry, to adopt your signature on the final map.
Right. So, other than me signing it, procedurally, do we need to do anything?
I don't believe so. But then again, I'm not the person that you would need to satisfy. That person isn't here. That person would be someone purchasing an interest in the property, et cetera. And I believe this resolution should satisfy him or her.
Okay. So, is there anything to approve, or is it?
Yes, the board will need to adopt the resolution.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, resolution adopted. Okay, what remains is approval of the minutes. Thank you, council.
Yes, ma'am.
Any comments on the June 20th minutes? Do I get a motion to approve the June 20th, 2019 minutes?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And for the July 18th, 2019 minutes, any comments?
I had submitted mine via email. There's minor.
Okay,
I don't know.
She has some minor adjustments that I believe she's correct, and I'll just say approve as amended.
okay. what were the, what were the
Yeah, one,
edits?
for example, was Matthew listed as present, but he wasn't.
Okay,
Things like, and then the other two, I don't remember.
It
It was just
was,
clarifying
missing
the language.
the word inch
Yeah.
after or something. And the other one I'm gonna go with Sean was about accessibility on block I, so I'm gonna review that one and make sure.
okay.
Pretty minor change.
Yeah, I think it was, I don't remember the language as the minutes are written, but the essence of my comment was just to clarify that what had been presented to us, the change in the Phase 1 Block I, was that the front entrance was going to be made accessible in addition to the rear entrances. I think the notes maybe say something about rear entrances being accessible, and I just wanted to make sure we were saying that.
I do know
Is
that
that
the
correct?
plans that have been submitted do
Yeah.
show, I think on building I-2, an accessible front entrance.
Right, which I think was the change from,
Yeah, that
pre-
does show a ramp in the
previous,
front of the
yeah.
building.
so it's just clarifying my memory of what had been said or is in the plans being recorded in the notes correctly.
Is that correct?
I believe so, that's the one I was gonna go over.
Okay.
So, for those members that were present for the July meeting, do you want to approve as amended, or are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I move to approve those minutes as amended.
All in favor, and I'll abstain since I was not present.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And do I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Sure. I move to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.